Hi, welcome to Lee on the Lectionary. I'm Lee Gatiss, and these are the readings for the fourth Sunday in Advent, Year B. 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 1 to 11 and verse 16. Romans 16, verses 25 to 27. And Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 38. The theme of our readings this week is the gospel revelation that Jesus, Son of Mary, would also be Son of God and Son of David, the promised eternal ruler for God's people. 2 Samuel chapter 7 is a key text for the unfolding of God's plan in the Old Testament. King David finally establishes a settled, peaceful kingdom after the opening, rather tumultuous years of his reign. Seeing that he has been secured in his palace by the Lord, he naturally desires to show his gratitude to God in some way. The obvious idea of building a more lasting, permanent temple to house the Ark of the Covenant is suggested, and the prophet Nathan encourages David to pursue this seemingly godly plan. Yet God has something simultaneously negative and positive to say in response to this. Negatively, he tells David it is not up to him to decide when it's time for God to settle down. Positively, he assures him that he will continue to be with the king and establish his dynasty not just for the foreseeable future, but for all time. The throne of David and the house of David are to be established forever. There will always be a Davidic king into the furthest reaches of eternity. God will be with the Davidic king and bless him. Now, the earthly dynasty of David does well in the next few centuries, outliving the more unstable dynasties of the northern kingdom of Israel. But how, after the exile and the destruction of David's Jerusalem, how can this prophetic word be fulfilled? It's not quite clear by the first century, as Israel languishes under Roman occupation. Until, that is, the angel Gabriel appears to a young woman engaged to a man from the house of David. She doesn't understand it and is perplexed by this announcement that God is with her and favours her. As Isaiah said, this virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son. God will give him the throne of his ancestor David, and he will reign forever. You see, the words are almost identical to the prophecy in 2 Samuel chapter 7. But this fulfillment, it's far greater and more glorious than Mary or anyone else could have anticipated. This divine king, this God-man, will truly reign forever and secure the place of the Davidic dynasty for all eternity in himself. Mary is the house in which this king will be brought to birth. In the Magnificat, she praises God for keeping his promise not just to David, but further back to Abraham, the promise to undo the fall and spread blessing to a world under the wrath of God. She has a most intimate and special place in the fulfillment of God's rescue plan for creation. There can never have been a more significant and joyful response to an unanticipated teenage pregnancy. The Apostle Paul began his letter to the Romans by bearing witness to the gospel of Jesus, the Son of God and the Son of David. At the end of his letter, like Mary, he gives glory to God and magnifies his name. God can strengthen his people by the gospel, this proclamation that Jesus is the Christ, the anointed King. So this doxology at the end of Romans chapter 16 acknowledges that the gospel is a mystery, formerly kept secret for long ages past, but now revealed in the coming of Jesus. This new disclosure of what was planned from eternity brings a aha moment for all, but especially to the Gentiles, who see for the first time in the prophetic writings of the Old Testament their own place in the cosmic plan of God. What was always there by the command of the most wise God, but somewhat concealed in types and prophecies, now snaps into focus with the coming of the King, a glorious King who commands the loving loyalty and obedient trust of all the nations of heaven.